welcome to the HVAC Game School Community Weekly Live Call, the Drive to Work Wednesday that's now sitting at home because it's at night. But first of all, the first question, as usual, is do we have any community questions from people that need to get answered?
Not that I know of. Personally, I didn't get anything. So I don't know if you have something, but nobody asked from my side. I didn't see anything.
Okay. Well, then we can ask
Okay.
Nick if he has a question
Mhm.
No, I don't
being
have
on
any
the go.
questions. You guys, the board is pretty informative, so yeah.
That's a statement. That's not a question. But
I
thank you. I
guess.
appreciate
Yeah, no, you're right.
it. No, it's awesome. I really appreciate that. So that's really what I'm working towards. So I'm glad to hear that.
Also, Eric is on the line now, okay?
Yeah,
I
that's the next I just saw that he joined, so I wanted to ask him because he had the issue with his Daikin gas valve. So I wanted to see if he wanted to go over this and maybe talk a little bit more about it, or
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. Hey, Eric, what's up?
Yeah. Hey, how are you?
It's good. It's good. I'm glad you could make it. That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean it's perfect time, so I'm like off for work and everything. But yeah,
Okay.
on that one, um I seen that same because I went off of the same troubleshooting guide that you sent. I had found that too.
Hmm.
Um
Okay.
the only thing is, on that one, well, the valve is getting 24 volts all the time, or the EXA valve seems to be getting 24 volts all the time from a transformer. And
Yes.
then there is 10, yeah, 2 to 10 volts DC.
Yes.
But then there's also a PWM wire. And that's where I kind of got stumped at because I'm like, is the PMW sending a pulse signal to let it know, hey, we're open at this percentage and that's the feedback? Or is the
Uh,
or is the board sending the 2 to 10 volts DC to tell it, hey, open up, or is the 2 to 10 volts DC the feedback? And then that's where I was like, you know what? I don't know which one's which, and I could not find anywhere on which one was what. And then I found it that he was getting 24 volts all the time, but
mm,
he didn't have no voltage DC at all.
yeah. So based on what I read and knowing how actuators work, they open and close based on a 10-volt DC input, and it
Mm-hmm.
ramps up and down between 2 and 10 volts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I saw somewhere in the manual it says that it's a variable. One second, I have it open. But it's a variable gas, like it's a modulating gas valve.
Mm-hmm.
So it measures the supply air temperature, and based on the supply air temperature, it ramps up and down
Yep.
the heat demand. And so
Mm-hmm.
you should be getting, based on what I know about actuators, you should be getting somewhere between 2 and 10 volts DC on your plus and minus wires.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you saw my comment. I just did some research just now and I
Yeah.
commented on your post.
Yeah. Just seen that.
And yeah,
Yeah, I did all that before, and I took the wires out and checked, and it seemed to me like the board was not sending 2 to 10 volts DC.
hmm, okay.
And
Then,
but then again, is is the board supposed to send the voltage, or is the board supposed to receive the voltage? And then there was that the PWM wire. There's like a pulse. So it got
it got confusing.
yeah, because I mean, I feel like at this point I kind of gotta probably call Daikin and be like, what are you guys doing with this wire? Is this wire telling the board that, hey, I'm because I get it, let's say the board sends 2 to 4, or the discharge sends 2 to 4 volts DC because he needs, let's say he sends 10 volts because the space is at 40 degrees and he needs that gas valve fully open. But
Hmm,
then there's that orange wire that I'm thinking it sends a pulse back. It's
Yeah, I
probably.
have to look. I have to look at this PWM
Mm-hmm.
wire, but based on what I know about modulating valves, you should be getting between 2 and 10 volts, and we have to find out what the board is supposed to send the 2 to 10 volts to the gas valve,
Yeah.
and per the manual, what I read, it has a supplier temperature somewhere
Mm-hmm.
that tells the board to open or close the valve. So I would personally, just based on experience, say that probably it's one of the sensors, more likely that's going bad. So I
Mm-hmm.
would go through the sensors and check that first.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, control boards fail too, and obviously in
Mm-hmm.
more in humid environments.
Mm-hmm.
And also if you don't do a lot of maintenance sometimes. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
So there is there's no voltage DC on that. So
yeah, so
would you still
that's an
so that
indication, and that basically indicates to me that either the board is bad or the board doesn't get the right input signal to send the voltage out. So I have to
uh-huh.
look at this. I'll do it after the call because I don't know exactly what the PWM is
Uh-huh.
supposed to do and how it's interacting with the board on this specific unit.
Uh-huh.
So I'll look into it and see if I can give some more feedback. But right now, based on the information,
Yeah.
I would say it's either the board or it's some kind of sensor because
Uh-huh.
the board needs the input from the unit telling it, hey, we're at this temperature, we're at this temperature, we're supposed to be doing that. And then the board has
Uh-huh.
the logic and is sending out
Uh-huh.
the 2 to 10 volts to open
Yep.
and close the valve.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not sensing the temperature, for example, which that's very common for me that supplier temperatures fail because they're in the humid environment and
Yep.
they corrode, and you can sometimes try and clean them off and they work, but usually it doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
work. So that's usually, I mean, that's the first thing that I would check is the
Mm-hmm.
supplier sensor, and then yeah, I mean, um, also the board. Yeah, I mean, they are
Uh-huh.
boards, they fail, so it's
Yeah.
very likely.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting the voltage to the gas valve, then
Yeah,
that
I'm not
would.
getting it's 0 volts.
But don't they
And
make like simulation devices? They have like a battery in it, and you can like adjust the
I actually tried it with a 9 volt battery myself.
and put it on there.
Yeah, but then again, it's like I don't know if those 10 if that 2 to 10 volts DC is the feedback back to the board telling the board, "Hey, I'm open at I'm open at 40% or I'm open at 30%."
Okay. I mean,
So that's
everything that I know, that would be the signal to open and close. But
yeah.
I guess it could be.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I
I'll look at it
figured.
more. So we'll
Yeah.
we'll we'll resolve this issue. Awesome. Okay. And
Um,
I guess that was your main question. So
Mhm.
all right. Yes,
yes,
Victoria?
yeah, that's all I have. Well, that was all I have from the questions and answers for this week. I don't know if you wanted to go over something else this week, but I think that's pretty much what I had. That's what
Yeah,
I
I
had.
have several topics. I mean, I have several topics. I always have something ready that I can cover.
Okay.
Um, one thing that actually Alan brought up, which I think it was Alan, which is a really good point, and I didn't really think about this for a long time,
Mhm.
but it's very valid, and that is fear of working on new systems and how to overcome fear and going into an unknown scenario.
Mhm.
And I thought it was very interesting that he mentioned that because I used to experience that all the time. And now I don't care anymore because there's so many similarities to air conditioning equipment that there's always something you can find. And so, I mean, with a little bit of time left, I just wanted to go over it a little bit.
Mhm.
But what I would do to go over fear of a new job or a new equipment or a unit that you haven't worked on yet is, I mean, first of all, don't worry. Like whatever you fuck up, it can be fixed. So that's one of the things that I learned over my years in air conditioning because I had many, many things that I personally messed up, especially in the first, I think like 1 to 3 years, maybe 4 years. But it kind of went down. But in the first year, there was so much things like little things and sometimes also big things that I messed up. And it was good because I was on site. I was a building engineer, so I could always just go back and just invest the time that I needed to repair the system, which helped me a lot to gain a better understanding of the system and overcome that whole like uncertainty. Um, but whatever happens, you can fix it. So that is already a good mindset that you should take with you because I mean, it will suck in the moment. And yes, the customer might be upset, your boss might be upset, but the bottom line is it can always be fixed. So that should take a lot of like anxiety out of working on a system just in general. And then also what I would recommend to do is look at the equipment. And that might be a stupid sentence or statement, but just look at the unit and get familiar with it. Just like be there, observe it, see what's there. And what I found sometimes is literally by looking and just being there and just looking at the unit, you can actually find out what's wrong and why is it broken. Like I just remember the story where um, that was when I was a facility services manager. I had one of my guys and he came to me and he's like, "Oh man, I've been with this unit. I was there 3 times and I can't figure it out." And I was like, "Well, what's going on?" And he tells me what's going on and we go to the area and I'm already thinking and I was like, "Well, I don't think the unit has power based on what he explained to me." And we open everything and I look at it and there was one wire nut that had come loose and there was just no connection. So there was literally no power to the unit. And all I did is we opened one panel and I stood there and I looked at it for a minute and I pushed on the wire nut and the unit turned on. And that's like kind of like it sounds stupid, but it's literally you just look at it, you familiarize yourself with the system and going beyond that to also overcome like new systems that you're unfamiliar with, that will help you get more familiar, but then also look for similarities to equipment that you worked on before. So let's say if you only know residential split systems and you have the condensing unit and you have the air handler inside, and then you go to a new job and maybe it's commercial and you're going on a roof and you have a package unit that is way bigger. Let's say it's a 15-ton and it's so big that you can barely look on top and you get overwhelmed and you get anxious and you're like, oh my God, it has 4 compressors and all of these fans and everything is so noisy and you're very, very confused. Just be there, observe the unit, and just see what the components are because all air conditioning is basically the same thing. You have the same components, you have the same functionality. Yes, some have more sensors, some have less sensors, some have more control boards. And so find a similarity to the equipment. So in that specific scenario, for example, having worked on condensing units, notice that there is a compressor. And instead of one compressor, you have 4 compressors. And notice you have a condenser fan motor. And instead of one condenser fan motor, maybe you have 4 or 5 condenser fan motors. So just find the similarities and work your way down and say, okay, you have an air handler, and on the package unit you have a blower assembly. So it's all in one. And then you combine, okay, I have my condensing unit from residential, I have my air handler from residential, and we're putting it together, and now we're getting a package unit. And that helps you just relate what you're working on right now to your own past experience and helps you basically find commonalities and it helps you start somewhere. So
Okay.
yeah, I just wanted to take that up because I think it was Alan. He just brought it up and I thought it was a very interesting point. So anyways.
I guess that makes sense. Like if you're freaking out, you just have to calm down. So that makes sense to me. That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
that's another good point because I even now find myself if I'm rushed or if I'm freaking out about something, I make mistakes. And I think I shared the video of what happened on Monday where I had a full system blowout, like all the refrigerant blew out, and that hasn't happened to me. I think it happened to me twice in my entire career where the whole charge just blew out and because of my um, inattention or me being worried about something. So in that specific scenario, I was like, I got a call on one line and then somebody else wanted something from me on the other line, and I was working on the unit and I was distracted and I was like, oh shit, I need to move on. I need to do this and this. And I wasn't really focused on what I was doing. And actually, one of the first lead techs that I worked under, he kept saying like, the more you rush, the more you fuck up. Like he's like, if you feel like you don't have the time to really investigate and find out what's going on and do a good job, you'll probably come back a second time because it takes off so much of your attention of being there and finding what the problem is and repairing it properly that something goes wrong and you have to come back and do it again. And he's like, you can waste your time now. I mean, you can be fast now, but then waste your time having to come back, or you can just do a good job now and maybe like quote unquote be slower, but just do it once and then in the end save time for you and the customer and your whole company. So that's actually a very good point that you brought up. Like, um, yeah, like the being rushed or having attention of something else, or also if like you have like 5 calls on your board and you're like, oh my God, I have to get to everything today. Like you cannot be physically in more than one place at one time. Like it's just physically impossible. So just be there mentally as well and do one job at a time and just be focused, do a good job, take care of the customer. And yeah, it might be hard, but just chill out, and be there because you're only one person. So unless you learn to split yourself in half, then you're gonna be there, do the one repair and move on. So anyways, that's what I had to share for today. And so unless we have another question or something we want to take up, then I guess it's it for right now.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
had
have any
one.
questions. Mhm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead. No, I don't have any questions. I don't know if somebody else has a question, so I just wanted to find out from them.
Yeah, no, I had a quick question. So when you get on a job site, like where's your mind at? Like how do you process? So you get a work order, you go to a job site. Like what is going through your mind when you arrive?
It really depends on each job. This is my procedure. Oops. That's my procedure is I always read the ticket first, so I know why I'm there for. So if it's a heating cool, a calling cool, if it's an airflow issue, because many times in commercial, the managers are already sort of tracking with air conditioning, so they can give more information usually. So I read the dispatch, then I get on site and I talk to manager, and that actually helps me narrow down because then I really find out what is it they have a problem with. And then I go and I look at the unit itself. And sometimes that requires me actually finding the unit because sometimes they have like between 5 and 10 units and they don't even know which unit is off. So I go, I read the dispatch, I talk to the manager, and then I look at the unit. And what I think the biggest change that I had over the years is I would always try and figure out on my way there what was going on with the unit based on the job description. And that's something that I completely stopped doing now because it doesn't really help me to troubleshoot the unit. Because even though you have a same call and it's the same unit, it might be a totally different problem. So I always try to keep my mind like I always understand what's going on and I have some kind of concept what I'm going to look at. Like if the manager says, for example, that the thermostat is blank, I know it's some kind of power issue. So I know that it's the control voltage. There's no control power because otherwise you would have 24 volts for the thermostat. So either it's some kind of safety that's out, the transformer blew, maybe it's a short, or it could also be like an overflow safety switch. So it's some kind of controls related issue. Usually, like if I have my main power coming to the unit, in that case, I would also check the breaker. So I have some kind of idea what I'm going into, but I always try to keep an open mind and clear head when I go and just inspect that specific unit based on what's going on that side.
That makes
Okay,
sense.
awesome.
Yeah, makes sense.
It does.
All right. Okay, well, I don't have any other questions. Anybody else has questions? No? Okay, I guess.
Speak now or forever hold your peace. No, it's fine.
All right, I guess that's the end for today. I don't know what's going on next week, but for
Yeah,
today,
is this time working or because the last 2 weeks we also had nobody on the calls at night and I wanted to actually move it back to the morning next week. But I don't know what, works what
maybe
works.
we
So
should try one more time.
Yeah, I mean, this time was good for me now, but my work schedule is going to change because I just got a new job, so it's going to be
Hmm.
rotating.
Okay. So works with morning or neither would work for you with the new schedule?
It depends on the week because I'm going to have to do. I'm on a rotating schedule, so some weeks I'll be opening, some weeks I'm closing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Well, we'll just play it by ear. I'm planning to make it back in the morning next week just because it's it's a lot easier on my end, but I'm gonna do whatever is easiest for the community. So if people are joining in the evening, we're probably gonna keep doing it in the evening. So maybe next week we'll do the same and see what happens. But if attendance is similar or doesn't change, then we'll probably do the morning. But we'll post in the community. So anyways, it was awesome that you guys joined. It was really good having you live and seeing you and talking to you. And I hope you're having fun. And we'll see you next week.
great. Thanks a
Alrighty.
lot.
Okay,
Okay,
bye.
bye.